How do I pivot my startup? Every startup pivots because no one's plan is exactly perfect. So the question isn't whether you should pivot. Instead, the question is how big or small your pivot should be. I've been there. My startup had to make a couple pivots before our product started selling the way we expected. I want to share my experience with you today. In this video, I'll share my 5-step plan to help you decide the right size of your pivot, because many times all you need is a small adjustment. Hi, I'm Brett. On my channel, I help early stage startup CEOs like you raise money and grow your startup. So if this sounds like you, then hit the subscribe button and the bell so you get notified every time I release a new video. Let's get started. And let's start with the fact that your pivot doesn't have to be big. I said in the introduction that every startup makes some sort of pivot or adjustment to their strategy. The reason you pivot is simple. Things aren't going right, and you haven't reached true product market fit yet, where your product strategy, marketing strategy, and sales strategy are all working seamlessly together. Sometimes the pivots are minor adjustments to your marketing or product strategy. For example, maybe you just need to tweak how you're positioning your product in the marketplace. Other times, you may need to make a much larger pivot, like Tiny Speck did when they pivoted from online gaming to create Slack. That pivot turned Slack into a messaging giant, which Salesforce later acquired for $27.7 billion. The size of your pivot depends on the type of problem you're facing. In this video, I'm going to walk you through my 5-step plan to figure out whether you need a small adjustment or a major overhaul. And let's start with step number 1. Step number 1, diagnose before you decide. The first step is to figure out what's wrong before you make any decisions. Let me share an example from my own company. I made 2 key assumptions in our initial strategy that turned out to be completely wrong. One mistake was related to our product strategy, and the other mistake was about our go-to-market strategy. Now here's the thing. Our products were selling, but not at the levels we expected. Thankfully, we had set benchmarks in our revenue forecast so we could clearly see where we stood. The key here is about being intellectually honest about what's going on. You can't hide from the data. And in our case, the data was telling us there was a problem. We had to dig into the root causes. Now, there are 3 areas that you need to analyze when diagnosing how you're doing. The first one is, does your product meet the needs of the market? The second one is your marketing strategy effective? The third one is your sales product effective? If you don't take the time to analyze these areas, you could end up making a pivot that's unnecessary or worse, harmful. Once you understand what's causing the problem, you'll know whether you need a minor adjustment or a major pivot. Now let's move to step number 2 on our list. Step number 2, do you have a product problem? When analyzing your products, there are 3 main issues that might arise. Number 1, technical limitations. You might not be able to build the product you envisioned due to technical constraints. This is what I call the laws of physics problem, where it's simply not feasible to achieve your original goals. The second is execution issues. Your team might not have the skills or resources to execute the plan. The third is marketing mismatch. Customers may not want the product you're offering, which could require a significant pivot. Technical and execution issues can lead to major pivots as well. In our case, we didn't face technical or execution challenges. However, the data clearly showed we had a market issue. Our initial assumptions about the market were incorrect. But here's the good news. All we needed to do was make a minor adjustment to our initial product strategy. That small adjustment was enough to produce better results. So before jumping to conclusions, Analyze the data carefully. You need to know whether your product problem requires a minor adjustment or a more significant pivot. Now let's move to number 3 on our list. Step number 3. Step number 3, do you have a marketing problem? When we talk about marketing, we're talking about, are our customers aware of our product or service? This means marketing providing qualified leads to your sales organization. That's the goal. Start by looking at your goals. Let's say you're relying on trade shows to generate qualified leads for sales. Now, if your goal is to generate 100 qualified leads and you're generating nothing, 0, then you likely need a new marketing strategy. On the other hand, if you're generating 50 leads when your goal was 100, you might just need to tweak your approach. In our case, our marketing assumptions turned out to be accurate, so no major adjustments were needed. However, many startups do struggle with ineffective marketing. That's why it's crucial to dig deep and understand what's not working. And this brings us to step number 4 on our list. Step number 4, is your sales organization effective? Sales is the final step in turning leads into paying customers. If you're not hitting your revenue targets, there are 2 common reasons. The first is your sales cycle is taking longer than expected. The second is you're converting fewer leads than anticipated. For example, let's say you're the one doing the selling and you expected deals to close within 3 months, but in reality it's taking 15 months or longer and competition is fierce. In this case, you might need a major pivot to target a different market. On the other hand, if deals are taking slightly longer, like 5 months instead of 3 months, that's a problem you can solve without a major pivot. It might just require refining your sales process or adjusting your expectations. In our case, one of our sales channels wasn't performing as expected. We decided to shift resources to the channels that were working well. This kind of adjustment can make a huge difference without requiring a complete overhaul. Now, let's move on to the final step in our process. Step number 5. Keep adjusting your plan. The best run companies are always making adjustments. They're never satisfied with the status quo. As markets evolve, these companies adapt, whether it's through minor tweaks or larger pivots. When we raised our Series B funding, potential investors told me that we had executed our plan well, but what they didn't see were the countless small adjustments we made along the way. These adjustments allowed us to stay on track and continue growing. So the key takeaway here is to embrace continuous improvement. Don't be afraid to make small adjustments as you grow. Now, if this content is resonating with you, then please hit the like button right now. One final thought. You don't want to overreact. This is especially important when you are just getting started. There will be a lot of unforeseen problems you will face starting your company. There always are. And because you are encountering problems, there will be calls for you to change course. This is where your leadership skills come in. You need to be steady at the wheel as you calmly examine the challenges you are facing. Remember, pivots don't have to be massive. Start small. Evaluate the impact and iterate. Small adjustments often lead to the biggest breakthroughs. Now, if you have any questions for me, please put them in the comments column below today's video. Now I have 2 more things for you today. First, my free startup pitch deck template. It has all the slides you need to develop an awesome pitch deck. Click the link below this video to download it for free. And second, join my free group of startup CEOs, Zero to Pitch. It's a community for startup CEOs focused on growing their companies and raising funding. Click the link below this video to join. Finally, click the subscribe button to get notified every time I release a new video. I'm Brett at brettjfox.com. Thanks for watching today. Take care. Bye.